Hello, welcome back to my channel, Inflightmuzik. My name is Ian, and if you're new here and you're looking for FL Studio tips and tricks, definitely hit that subscribe button and hit that notification bell so that you are notified every time I drop a new video. So a while back, I did a video on 3 different ways that you could sidechain in FL Studio, and I did a follow-up video showing an advanced sidechain technique. Well, this time I want to show you what I now consider the best way to sidechain in FL Studio. So first I want to show you the typical way that people will sidechain in FL Studio. What they'll do, they'll go to their bass track, they'll insert Fruity Limiter, and then they'll click on their kick track, and then they will right click down here and select sidechain to this track. And then you could go into the sidechain of the limiter on your bass track and select the kick. And now this is sidechain to the kick. One thing that people miss about doing this technique, you definitely want to go into the limiter and turn all of this down, because it creates a delay if you have this attack up, and then turn the ceiling all the way up so that you're not actually limiting anything at all, just in case, just to be safe. So that's one reason already why the Fruity Limiter might be causing you some problems. But also, if you go back into the comp or the compressor, you'll see another problem with sidechaining your kick to your bass. And what you typically want, you want the attack all the way down, and then you just want to adjust the release for the bass to come back up to full volume. But you'll see here, the kick is causing weird compression inside of the bass. So it's not as clean as you really want it to be in terms of sidechaining. So this is what people are complaining about when they say that sidechaining sounds horrible, or specifically in trap and hip hop. People won't sidechain their kicks because of the sound that this creates, this extra compression. And you'll see that when you decrease the release, which is typically what you want that bass to come back in pretty quickly, because you don't want to hear the pumping effect that the sidechain is causing. But the more you decrease this release, the more weird artifacts that you are getting within this compression. So here's the best solution for this. Instead of using a limiter or compressor, I really only recommend doing that if you're really trying to get a pumping effect like in EDM. But if you're in the urban genres where you just want a clean bass and a really hard-hitting kick, stay away from Fruity Limiter. Instead, I'm going to use part of the advanced sidechaining technique that I showed in my earlier video, but now we're going to take it a step further. So what we're going to do, we're going to take this kick pattern, we're going to copy that, and we're going to paste it into this sidechain pattern that I have right here. And what this sidechain pattern is, it's literally just a hi-hat. But we're going to clean this up by going into the envelope, and you'll see that I have a very narrow envelope on this where hardly any of the sound is getting out. So it's literally just a click. I'll clean it up even further by adjusting this out knob. So now we literally just have a tiny tick. And that's really what you're looking for. You could use anything. You could use a hi-hat. You could really use any type of small percussion instrument, a rim shot, anything with a nice little transient at the beginning, and then you just want to take that transient. And that's going to give you a lot more control over your sidechain. What you want to do with your sidechain track, we're going to load up Fruity Peak controller. You don't want this routed anywhere. So we're not going to be listening to this track at all. And right now I have it routed to these parallel buses and effects buses, but you could see that these volumes are turned down. It's not actually sending a signal out anywhere. From there, load up Fruity Peak controller, and you'll have these settings right here. And what we're going to do, right click on your bass track. This is one option, but there's an even better option than this, but I want to show you this option just in case this is how you want to do it. Right click the volume slider, or you could load up a plugin with volume on it. So for example, like Fruity Panomatic, you can right click here, link to controller. Either way, a lot of people will like doing it inside of using the volume inside of a plugin versus the volume slider, so that you have control over this volume slider at any moment. I'm just going to do the volume slider for now so you can see the action of the slider. Go into internal controller, click peak control peak, and hit accept. From there, you right click the slider or whatever control that you just linked that to, copy the value and paste it right here where it says bass. And what that does, that makes whatever setting you have here equal to this setting. So this is the default volume that your bass is going to be at. And then turn your volume all the way down. And this will make the volume duck every time it gets a signal from this click track. Make sure your effect is turned on. I had it turned off, but it should just be on automatically when you load up the plugin, so that's not something you really have to worry about. And we're just going to play the track while we adjust the tension and the decay until we get the exact sound that we're looking for. Now you see how clean these drops are, and it comes back up cleanly without any extra artifacts or anything. That's what you're looking for. And that's going to keep your sidechain really, really smooth. And then we can adjust the decay and tension to make it come back up even faster or slower. And because that click track was so clean that we're using, really you're hardly needing to even adjust these settings at all. You're just getting really fast ducking and bringing the signal back up. So this technique is actually called sidechain ducking versus sidechain compression. Two very different techniques. One is a lot cleaner than the other. It almost sounds like there's no sidechaining going on, and that's what you want on an urban track. But sure enough, there is a lot going on here, and I'm going to prove it to you. I'm going to go into my Fruity limiter here on my master track, and we're going to see the difference between using sidechain and not using sidechain. And you're going to notice that from the get-go, we're getting a cleaner signal going into Fruity limiter, which means that we could bring the signal up even more and get a more powerful sound. And it's because when you're playing a kick and a bass together, it creates a lot of power down there in the low end, typically too much power. So you want to get that bass out of the way of the kick so that that kick can hit cleanly. So I'm going to turn this sidechain compression off, and you're going to notice that this limiter is working harder than it even needs to. Versus when I turn it on, you'll see that the limiter is having a much easier time controlling those peaks. So this is without it. You can see the amount of compression going on. It's very light compression, which is due to the way that I mix the track. But you'll notice when I turn this sidechain on, it's going to be working a lot less. See how much cleaner it is? It's hardly doing any compression compared to before. Off again. Every peak's getting compressed. Now earlier I mentioned doing an advanced technique in an earlier video, and I'm going to use this technique in combination with the advanced technique. And what I'm talking about is sidechain EQ. If we go into my Fruity EQ here, now one thing that I see a lot of people do, they'll switch this over to a high pass or a shelving filter. And that works, but what that ends up doing, it cuts out all of the low end completely. So let me show you what that looks like. What we're going to do, we're going to right click this knob right here and copy that value. Let me exit out my limiter. And then we're going to go into Fruity Peak Controller and paste this onto the bass. And what that does, again, that just sets the value to exactly what this is. So this will be our starting value. Right click again and link that to the peak on Peak Controller. Remove conflicts, accept. That takes the Peak Controller off of this slider that we added it to. I'm going to reset that. And now we'll get that same ducking on this low end versus the slider. And the advantage of that is you still get the bass playing constantly. All we're doing is just removing the low end of the bass so that that kick can play fully. So here's an even better option. Go into your kick go into a spectrum analyzer, or parametric EQ works as well, and just play your kick and see where the frequency is hitting. So we're getting most of the kick's power around 60 hertz. So from there, go back into your bass EQ. We're going to switch this over to a peak filter. So switch this over to peaking and move this right around 60 hertz. I have it already right around 60 hertz. And now you're still going to get those deep sub frequencies from your bass. And we're just going to duck out where the area where the main power of the kick is hitting, which is right here. And then we could adjust the bandwidth of the ducking right here as well. And I pretty much like it as is right there. And I know some of you are wondering, well, what about the excess frequencies that I'm getting down here past 20 hertz? Well, in my master, I take care of that with Maximus by cutting at 20. So if you wanted to, some people move that up to 30 hertz. Just make sure that you have your linear phase filters turned on so that you're not changing the phase relationship of the low end. Some people will talk about phasing issues when you're using sidechain ducking with your EQ. At the end of the day, just use your ears. If it sounds good, it's good. So yeah, that's a much cleaner way to sidechain your bass to your kick, because not only do you get more power out of your kick, you actually get more power out of your bass too, compared to previous techniques. And on top of that, it gives you more room to do things like compression or limiting on your master track. So overall, you just get a cleaner, more powerful signal by using this sidechain technique. If you have any questions, comments, concerns, definitely leave them down in the comments down below. And don't forget to subscribe and hit that notification bell. I'll see you guys in the next video. Peace.